lady knows how to die," said the sergeant major of the dragoons, assigned to execute one of the most storied, convicted spies in history, Mata Hari. And she is, obviously, the subject of this season's book club and the Paulo Coelho novel, The Spy. Coelho's book is not a history book, and in all honesty, we'll be pointing out quite a few areas of concern in the narrative. But historical fiction carries an important place in the study of history, as long as it's good fiction. Dry tomes full of dates and obscure names are excellent ways to keep facts straight. But what they do not do is relay the feeling of history. They aren't stories, they're facts. And the human mind needs stories to truly understand. Today, we'll be going over pages 3 to 23. And as we say every season, there will be spoilers. We're discussing a book as if we have all read it together, and it is about a historic event that is well known. The assumption is everybody already knows who Luke Skywalker's father is in the Mata Hari story. Coelho's book begins with a factual account of Mata Hari's execution. The beginning is the end in this writing. And if an execution can be said at all to be magnificent, Mata Hari was magnificent in her death. Refusing to be tied to the stake, she stood straight, and the only clothes she was allowed, and which had been specifically chosen to highlight her in court as an immoral woman. She also refused to wear a blindfold and look clearly at the men holding the rifles for her execution. After the volley of fire, when Mata Hari dropped, and it was gracefully, to the ground, a final shot was delivered to her head to make well and truly sure she wasn't going to get up and begin seducing men again. From there, the bulk of Coelho's book switches to the form of a letter written by Mata Hari to her lawyer Clunier about her life. This actually does jive with the historic account Mata Hari wrote 3 letters in the morning before her execution. She entrusted them to the priest, but instead, along with the memoir she had written and had printed, they disappeared forever. But Coelho's version of the letters is where the fiction in historical fiction comes in. It works well, though, because the real Mata Hari herself was consistently an unreliable narrator about her life. One of the reasons she was convicted of espionage. Mistakes in the narrative of the novel could have been mistakes as she would have written them herself. One of the reasons memoirs are the books I'm most likely to skip in a bookstore. These pages dwell on the earliest life of Margaretha Zell, later Greta MacLeod, and finally Mata Hari, and the facts of her early life are these. She was born in 1876 and had quite a charmed early life with all the advantages of a prosperous father. Until he went bankrupt, divorced her mother. Her mother died, and Mgrit, as she was then called, went in search of a better life. Her teenage years were more difficult. Without a mother and with a father whose newest wife did not want the already flirtatious and spoiled Mgrit in her house, the young woman was passed to various godparents and family members. At one point, she was sent to a teaching school, a profession that everyone knew. Even at that time, she was totally unsuited for, and then expelled for an affair with the headmaster. But this glimpse into her past should be taken with a grain of salt as well. Mgrit was 16, and the headmaster, a married man in his 50s who controlled her school career. The balance of power was not with the teenager. She was well known as a flirt, though, and the incident would be used later in her life as proof of her bad character. Expelled from school, looking for something special to do, Greet ran across an ad in a newspaper. An officer in the Dutch Army of Scottish descent, currently stationed in Indonesia, seeks young bride to get married and live abroad. Greet didn't hesitate. She responded to the ad, sending along a picture as well. 3 months later, she and Rudolph McLeod, a man 21 years older, were married. Greet, known as Greta now by Rudolph, thought she had figured everything out. Initially, while dating, the two seemed to have had a passion for each other. Greet's letters, which are kept in a museum in her Dutch birthplace, were quite shocking if anyone had seen them at the time. She actually discusses her underwear and her menstrual cycle with Rudolph before they were married. On paper, Rudolph seemed perfect for her. His family was lower nobility, and Greet thought that it was the ticket back to the carefree life of privilege she had grown up in until her father's bankruptcy. But Rudolph wasn't the person she thought he was. He was deeply in debt. He had an explosive temper, probably exacerbated by mental conditions from serving in some of the bloodiest fighting of the Aceh War in the Dutch East Indies. And he was also likely suffering from one of the most humiliating diseases running rampant amongst 18th and 19th century people, syphilis. In the Netherlands, approximately 12.4% of the population were infected with syphilis, with the Dutch army showing a higher rate of infection. And there were laws that regulated what someone infected with syphilis was allowed to do. There were just ways around them. For instance, if someone went through treatment and then showed no sores for a year, they were considered able to marry, although they were required to tell their intended spouse of the infection. Greet, even later as Mata Hari, never discussed this in a way that has survived. So all that is available about this part of her life is conjecture. Even though syphilitic infection is mentioned in official reports during her spy trial. The two married in 1895. Their first child, a son, was born in the Netherlands, and the two headed to what is now Indonesia, then the Dutch East Indies, in 1897. And this is where we'll pick up the next bit of reading for Paulo Coelho's book, The Spy, about the life and death of the infamous Mata Hari. Next week's discussion will be about pages 24 to 44 of the book. And as a reminder, there will be spoilers as we discuss. See you next week in Mata Hari's Indonesia.
What to do